Good morning, buenos dias, bonjour, sin chao, ni hao, what's up? It's me, Mr. Jordan. Today we're going to be looking at The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, chapter 25. So we'll start with a brief recap and summary of the chapter. Then we're going to get into a close reading and deeper analysis of the text. Finally, we'll finish with the vocabulary, context, and definition of a few words in this chapter. Let's get into the brief recap and summary of chapter 25 from The Handmaid's Tale. In this chapter, Offred, the narrator, wakes up curled in a ball on the floor, and she surprises the servant who's coming to drop off her breakfast. Cora, the servant, drops the breakfast, shattering the orange juice glass and the eggs on the floor, a symbolic moment. Later, Offred tells us that spring has come, and the action or event that she sees signaling spring is the flowers coming up in the garden, and they're very fertile and fecund, and there are many red flowers too, which represents the color of the handmaids as well as fertility. And in the garden sits Serena Joy, the commander's wife, dressed in her blue outfit, and she's snipping off the heads of the flowers, so she's cutting off their seed. Finally, we hear that Offred is again visiting the commander and playing Scrabble with him. So they've formed a kind of illicit bond, and they're meeting up or having rendezvous at night when they play Scrabble together. And he begins to give her a series of gifts. So first he gives her a magazine, so banned information, banned text to read. And then second, he gives her a bottle of hand lotion so she can use it on her dry skin. So she's starting to achieve some privilege. And this trade or barter between them also signals that she's changed the leverage of her power in the household. Let's get into a close reading and line-by-line analysis of the chapter. There's a lot here symbolically, especially to do with fertility and eggs and infertility. So at the start of the chapter, there's this scene where Cora drops the breakfast that she's brought for Offred, and everything shatters on the floor. So she believes that Offred's committed suicide, and that's why she's lying on the floor, similar to the past handmaid who had killed herself in the room. So Cora jumps and screams, shattering the breakfast, and then there's this moment with the eggs. The eggs had broken on the floor. There was orange juice in a shattered glass. Cora actually gets excited, thinking maybe there's a fainting spell, which would be indicative of Offred possibly being pregnant. And we hear, "It's one of the early signs," she said, pleased, that and throwing up. She should have known there hadn't been enough time, but she was very hopeful. "No, it's not that," I said. "I was sitting in the chair. I'm sure it isn't. I was just dizzy. I was just standing here and things went dark." So if we recall the previous chapter, Offred has had a kind of transcendent experience, like almost she's been reborn. And now we know that she's not going to have a baby. She's no longer interested in that. She has this new opportunity through bargaining and exchange with the commander. Quote, "They'll want to know why the extra eggs, unless you can do without." So Cora's trying to make a deal here where she no longer has to replace the breakfast, but symbolically it's Offred is going to do without her eggs, right? She no longer needs them because her goal is no longer going to be to produce a baby. She's going underground. She's going to try and cheat the system and escape. Offred tells us, "It pleased me that she was willing to lie for me, even in such a small thing. Even for her own advantage. It was a link between us." So you see this again hinting at Offred now becoming more diplomatic and more in control of her own narrative. Cora speaks again. "It did give me a turn," she said, as she stood in the doorway with the tray. "At first I thought it was just your clothes like. Then I said to myself, what are they doing there on the floor? I thought maybe you'd..." Then Offred interjects, "Run off?" This idea between them, the possibility of escape, is starting to circulate in the household. When spring arrives, it's this moment of fertility, right? Of fecundity. The flowers are blooming, everything's green, the earth is being reborn after the cold, harsh, dry spell of winter. Life is returning to the earth. But that life, that nature, the ability to reproduce and be fecund is being snipped off or cut off here in Gilead. And there's also this connotation here of the sexually repressive theocracy, of the religious regime and the rules repressing or holding back the natural ability of animals and humans to reproduce. The willow is in full plumage and is no help with its insinuating whispers. Rendezvous, it says, terraces. The sibilants run up my spine. A shiver as if in fever. The summer dress rustles against the flesh of my thighs. The grass grows underfoot. At the edges of my eyes, there are movements in the branches. Feathers, flittings, grace notes, tree into bird, metamorphosis run wild. Goddesses are possible now, and the air suffuses with desire. Even the bricks of the houses are softening, becoming tactile. If I leaned against them, they'd be warm and yielding. There's this real sense of sensual energy, right? The air is charged with a kind of eroticism. Offred's meeting the commander at night, having these secret little chats, and he's giving her these gifts and presents, almost like they're dating or they're having a sort of back and forth, right? They're courting. Serena, on the other hand, is aggressively attacking the fertility or the burgeoning relationship. Here, she was aiming, positioning the blades of the shears, then cutting with a convulsive jerk of her hands. Was it the arthritis creeping up? Or some blitzkrieg, some kamikaze, committed on the swelling genitalia of the flowers, the fruiting body? To cut off the seed pods is supposed to make the bulb store energy. Saint Serena on her knees doing penance. So notice not only the religious references there, but also two separate occasions to military or attack procedures, right? A kamikaze, a Japanese pilot who strategically committed suicide to attack the enemy, or the blitzkrieg, which is the all-out bombardment of England by the Nazi bombers during World War II. So Serena's mounting her attack here, right? She's attacking the fertility or the relationship that's happening between the commander and Offred. And Offred confirms for us that this relationship is real. She says, "The commander and I have an arrangement. It's not the first such arrangement in history, though the shape it's taken is not the usual one." And then she goes on to explain about what the Scrabble means to her. I likened it in the previous chapter to this idea she now has access to words or banned material, so she's allowed to start controlling her narrative. And we hear, "So when I left the room, it still wasn't clear to me what he wanted or why, or whether I could fulfill any of it for him. If there's to be a bargain, the terms of exchange must be set forth. This was something he clearly had not done. I thought he might be toying, some cat and mouse routine. But now I think his motives and desires weren't obvious even to him. They had not yet reached the level of words." Again, this idea that they're forming a bond is reinforced. Quote, "The commander was patient when I hesitated or asked him for a correct spelling. We can always look it up in the dictionary, he said. He said, oui. The first time I realized he'd let me win." So she's understanding that they're in this together. They're literally conspiring. They're committing conspiracy, treasonous. And later she finds out why or what his motivation is. There it was, out in the open. His wife didn't understand him. That's what I was there for then. The same old thing. It was too banal to be true. So Offred's realizing she is in fact a concubine or a mistress. There's no greater depth or understanding to it. The man is acting in the same old way he always has. Another quote to finish the chapter really reinforces this idea. For him, I must remember, I am only a whim. Let's dig into some vocabulary along with the context and definitions of the words from this chapter. Blitzkrieg, or Blitz. The Blitz referred to the German campaign of bombing England in 1940 and 1941. It was an intensive or sudden military attack. It's also used now in regards to chess, so strategic attack, or to seriously damage a person or place. It can also refer in American football to the idea of attacking another quarterback. It's this idea of being all out and aggressive. If you're a blitzer, you're going for it. You're leaving nothing behind. And that's also hinting at where Serena Joy has come, right? She's in a position where she's losing hold, and so she's going to attack. She's attacking her enemy, in this case Offred or her husband. Swoon. To swoon means to faint, especially from an extreme emotion. And remember, this chapter starts with Offred fainting, or at least with Cora believing she's fainted. It can also be to be overcome with admiration, adoration, or another strong emotion. So swooning over someone almost means like you're crushing on them. So in a way, the commander is swooning over Offred in this chapter. Rendezvous means to meet at a specific time or place, and it comes from the French word to present yourself, rendezvous, so like show yourself. So in other words, the commander is doing his rendezvous, right? He's laying his cards on the table, or his Scrabble chips. He's showing Offred his real position when he says his wife doesn't understand him. A quandary. Quandary is one of the words used in their Scrabble game, and it means a state of perplexity or uncertainty over what to do in a difficult situation. In other words, Offred is in a bit of a quandary. She doesn't know how she should handle this newfound power and the new leverage she has with the commander. It's a difficult situation or a practical dilemma. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you liked the chapter. Make sure to leave comments and questions below, and I'll see you next time in chapter 26 of The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. Thanks so much for watching.